Okay, so we're going at the bottom of 147. We're going to continue to 148 and hopefully finish the Pedic at the beginning of 149 today. All right, the Mishnah has a kind of a miscellany of laws regarding, food preparation, temperature, wringing out clothing, washing in hot water, different things like maybe all related to temperature. We'll see what they'll have in common. Okay, it says notnin tafshir letoch habor b'shvil sheyeh shamur. So I have a dish, a pot of food, and I want to put it in a cistern or in a hole in the ground, and that will keep it safe. Probably also will keep it cool. That's okay. Why would it be a problem? We'll see. Or if I take some nice clean water in a jug, and I put the entire jug in dirty water that's colder. That's okay also because it's going to keep it cold. Obviously, I'm not going to put the water itself directly, only in the jug. Why would anyone think it's a problem? Well, the Talmud will have to explain that. You can also take cold water or anything, cold dish, put it in the sun for the sun to heat it up. This is actually a very important principle in the laws of bishul, of cooking, that if you can cook something directly in the sun, that is permitted on Shabbat. I remember when we learned this halacha in Midrash and YU, we concocted all kinds of devices to cook steak just by using the sun. Because you can't enclose it. It can't be a reflection. It can't be a mirror. It can't be because you heat a box up. It's got to be directly. So this is the source. If your clothing, while you're walking, your clothing gets wet. It was raining. You fell in a puddle. You can keep walking, and you don't have to worry that by walking you're going to wring it out or you're going to take them off. It's okay, you keep walking. Once you get to the outer courtyard of your home or maybe of the city, a place where you can take off the clothing and no one will steal it. So you can go there and take it off and put it out in the sun. And I guess you have something to wear, and then you can go the rest of your way. That is permitted, and you don't have to. However, if there are people there that are seeing you doing this, then you may not do it because they will think that you just did laundry. Right? They think you went out to the river, you did laundry, you're bringing your clothes back and putting them out in the sun to dry. But if there's nobody around, then you can take them off in that place, and so that they can dry. So this has in common of putting things out in the sun. One is to get warm, one is to dry, and those both of these are permitted. Okay, so the Talmud will take up each one. First one, Peshita. Obviously, you can put a pot of food inside a hole in the ground. What might be the problem? So the infamous problem comes up a lot, that you may level out the ground. If you put your pot in and it's not stable, then it'll fall out. So you might go and smooth out the pit. So therefore, I might have thought it's not okay. And the Mishnah says, even so, it's okay. People will be careful and they won't do that. You can put the cold water, clean water in a jug inside dirty water to keep them cool. Peshita also, what could be the problem? Why do you need to tell me this? You don't give me every case in the world of things I can do. This was only an introduction to the next case. In other words, you're right. We didn't actually need to know this case, which is pretty interesting, right? It's only for introduction that you could put a cold water in the sun. It's kind of the opposite. You could put something warm water inside cold water, and then you can put cold water in the sun to heat up. Okay, but even that is obvious. I might think that it would be a problem because if you tell me I can heat up in the sun, I might think I'm allowed to heat it up in other ways also, like insulating it with hot coals, hot ashes, which is a problem. And so therefore, I might have thought I can't do it in the sun either. That's what the Mishnah says, the sun is okay. No, great. Now we get to the more complicated one. Mishnah, the garments fell off in the water, so I can put them out to dry. as long as there's no one else watching. That's interesting. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Kol Makom, Kol Makom she'asru chachamim b'nei marit ha'ayin, afilu b'chadrei hadarim asur. Rav has a principle that when the rabbis say you can't do something because marit ha'ayin, people might see, then I'm remembering my dream last night was, I don't know, I was drinking or something, and someone said, you shouldn't drink because people are looking and they're going to think badly of you. Okay, I don't usually drink, so that's funny. Okay, maybe it's because I was studying this Gemara. Okay, any place that the rabbi said you should not do something because people will suspect you, even in private, even in a room within a room, you may not do it. Why not? Well, maybe because walls have eyes. You never know if someone's watching. You might get into the habit of doing it in private, and then you'll do it in public also. Or maybe it's for yourself as well. That you might get confused yourself and think, oh, if I'm allowed to do this, then I'm allowed to do the other. So that's principle across the board. However, this contradicts our Mishnah. You can put out your wet clothes in the sun. And if you're in private, but not when there's other people watching. So what's the deal? Tana'ehi, actually, this is the subject, this principle of Rav is the subject of a machloket Tana'im. The Tanya, Shotchan b'chama, abalo keneged ha'am, Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Shimon, osrin. Rather, the Mishnah itself is machloket Tana'im. Our Mishnah is the Tanakama, but there's two sages that say you may not put out the clothing, not in public and not even in private. So that second opinion would fit what Rav said, that anything that you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to do, whether or not there are people watching. And so
it only fits if you're trying to fit it, though.
Well, it's not allowed.
Yeah, otherwise it's just not allowed. It's not because you can't do it and has nothing to do with anything.
Right. Okay. So the Mishnah gives very little information about why any of these things are mentioned, why they're permitted, and why they're prohibited. Right. So you're right. We might think of other reasons, and we could check the Yerushalmi or Tosefta, see if there's any other reasons mentioned. Right. But within this line of thought, the reason is because it will come to. So it's not going to come to laundering because you didn't launder. You didn't launder. But maybe it will. Maybe I put them out last time and they were wet. Maybe I can go get them wet and put them out to dry. Okay, so for whatever reason, so that what the Talmud is doing here is very, very important strategy of taking the Mishnah, which seems to be the accepted halacha, then showing that actually there's a machloket about it, and then connecting that machloket to what Rav said, that across the board, it doesn't matter public or private, it's not allowed, and that ends up becoming the halacha regarding Marit Ayin. Okay, good. Amar Rav Huna mena'ir talito b'Shabbat. Chayav hatat. Okay, someone has his cloak and he shakes it out, like a vigorous shaking, or pushes things off to clean it. That is not allowed. That's a way of laundering, taking a carpet and waving it outside. Chayav hatat. However, there's a lot of limitations. Only if it's a new garment, but not an old one. Because a new one, you want it to be nice and sparkling, fresh, and perfectly clean. But if it's already been worn a few times, then people don't really care about some dust that gathered on it. And so, if you don't care about the dust, then you're allowed to shake it off, because then you're not laundering, right? You're just it's kind of convenient. But if you wouldn't wear it and you really care about it, then it is called laundering. So people only really care when something is new. It's like you get a new car and you make sure to keep it really clean. After 3 days, right, your kids already spilled pretzels all over the place, then you don't care anymore. And this is only talking about a black garment, because a black garment, the dust shows. But in colored garments, white, red, the dust is not noticeable. So generally people don't care about that so much. So therefore you're allowed to shake it off, because since you would wear it anyway, even with the dust, it's not actually laundering. And the third one is more catch-all, and it's only if you actually care about it. In other words, even if you have all the other ones, if you're a person that doesn't care about dust, then you're allowed to shake it off. And we have two stories about rabbis differing on this. אולי כלל לפומפדיתא, חזר רבנן כדקה מנפסי גלמייהו. When Ula went to the city of Pumbedita, he saw the rabbis there were shaking out their cloaks. They were removing dust. Amar kamehalalin rabbanan shabbata. They're violating Shabbat, right? It just says right here that chayav hatat. Amar lehu Rav Yehuda, the local sage, said nefuseh le be'apeh anan la kaptinan mideh. He went to those rabbis who were shaking out their clothes and said, shake out your clothes in front of Ula. Shake it right in his face. Because we don't care about this. We're not particular about the dust that is on the clothing, and we wear it anyway. So I don't know if he meant literally go and shake it in his face. That would be a little bit insulting. But he meant that we do not agree with that opinion. And that is this story shows the principle that we just said. Chronologically, probably the story came first, right? And that's how we learn that this principle that if you don't care, then it's okay. Abaye haba kamed Rav Yosef amar le havli kumtai. Abaye asked Rav Yosef for his hat, and Chazadi katala ale hava kam hasem lemi teva le. So he saw that Abaye took the hat, and he was hesitating to give it to him because there was some dirt, there was some dew on it, and so but he wasn't sure if he's allowed to wipe it off or if he should give it to him just like that. Amale nafos shede anan la kapdinan be. Rav Yosef said, just shake it off and give me the hat. We don't care about the little dew, little dust on the hat. I would wear it anyway, and since I would wear it anyway, therefore, I don't consider it important. Therefore, you may shake it off on Shabbat. This case brings up some interesting formulations. What if I don't care about it, but you do, right? And it's your hat. So am I allowed to shake it off because I don't care about the dust, right? Or the other way around. Let's say you don't care about the dust, but I do, but you asked me to give me the hat and I wipe it off. You don't care about it. Okay, so we could spend a lot of time on that.
I shake out my tablecloth.
Yeah.
Like Friday night after dinner so that I can maybe use it on the other,
Is it black?
No.
All right, then you're okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's only for black garments?
That's what it says here, yeah. Only if it's new, black, and you care.
Okay. Well, I do care.
Well,
because it's messy.
Yeah, I understand. Here, one may not, this is the Rambam's formulation, you may not shake off dew of a new black cloak if he would not wear it. In other words, he combines you need all three in order for it to be prohibited. So this is pretty mekel. But certainly if you want, we can look at Shulchan Aruch and later poskim as well. Confirm. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar Rabbi Yochanan hayoseh betalit mekupelet munachat lo al ketefo b'Shabbat hayav hatat. Someone goes out with his robe folded over his shoulders. You think of a long robe. The best analogy is probably a talit that people wear Ashkenaz style, and you put the sides over, right? So imagine if you had a robe or something, and you didn't want the bottoms to drag or get dirty on the floor, and so you lifted it up and folded it over on your shoulder. That is called carrying, because that's not a normal way to wear it, right? And therefore, you're not wearing it, you're carrying it. So chayav hatat. People who sell clothing, if they sell a lot of times people who are selling clothing might also wear it as a sample. They were a model. Hope they look good in it. And so they didn't want their merchandise to get dirty, so they would wear it like this, folded over their shoulders. And they may not do that, chayav chatat. The Baraita continues. In fact, not only people that sell clothing, but anyone the law applies to may not do that. But the Baraita is giving you a typical case. These people typically walk like that. Similarly, a shopkeeper, he has to have some cash around where when he goes. He cannot go out with the coins bound up in his cloak. That would be a normal way to carry money around, kind of like a pocket. in her pocket. In fact, no one is allowed to carry money like that, but we just gave a common example. ולא לתנין בלבד אמרו, אלא כל אדם, אלא שדרכן של התנין לשאת בכך. Foot messengers had to run fast. They would typically wear some kind of handkerchief that would, kind of a shorter kerchief around their necks. It wasn't so long, it wouldn't get in the way when they ran. And that's considered a normal way of wearing it. And not only runners, but anyone who wants to could wear their kerchief like that. Okay, I guess there's multiple layers. At one time they said the law as one example, and then people got confused that it was only a chinvani, only a ratan, and so that to explain it further that anybody can do that. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Maaseh behurkanos beno shel Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanos. Right, so we see from here that the Tanaim would name their children after their fathers. Right, the kids were named after grandfathers, like we do. Sheyasa besudar she'al kitefo b'Shabbat, and this Hurkanus, the child, the son, went out with a kerchief like this around his shoulder. But he also had one of the strings of the kerchief tied to his finger, so that it was more stable. If some wind came, he was holding on to it, and so it would not fall off. The rabbi said, not only is he allowed to do that, he doesn't have to even tie it to his finger. He could just leave it there, even though it's not the most widespread way of wearing such a kerchief. It's more like these runners, it's permitted. Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda mishemeh Rav Chisda halacha af al pi she'en li makirucha lo be'otav. Rav Nachman, when he gave a derasha, he gave a public lecture about this. Whenever a rabbi says a statement in a public lecture, there were special public lectures like a pirka, which was done on Shabbat in the morning after the tefillah, and everybody was expected to come. Sages, the lay people, they would all come, and the rabbi would give a big derasha. Any halacha that he said in an official lecture like that was considered halacha l'maaseh, right? And so that would be established. In other words, if he just said a halacha in a small group of the students, we're not sure, is this a theoretical law? Does he mean it practically? Right? So that's why when they say darash, he said this publicly, then he meant that is a halacha that you can put into practice. Ola ikla lebe asi barhini. So they asked him, can you make, marzev is a word for a gutter, but in this case it means clothing, like a hem of a clothing. Can you lift up the bottom of the clothing and sew it up higher and therefore make a kind of pocket or big hem? Asur la'asot marzeh b'Shabbat. No, you're not permitted. My marzeh, amar bizera, kiseh bablayata. They're also known as Babylonian pockets. They would do that to their clothing. Okay, let's see why. Rabbi Yirmiyah havayatev kameh Rabbi zera maleh hachi mai. So it was so hard for us to understand this because we don't have pictures, right? But the Rabbi Yirmiyah, and as we're studying this, he said, how about like this? Can I do it like that? He said, asur. How about like this? We don't know exactly what the cases were. Anyway, he said, asur. And then he says, you're going to ask me 100, different possibilities. Here is the principle to know whether this type of folding up is permitted or not. Anytime you are folding up the clothing for protection, because you don't want to get dirty, then that is prohibited. But if it's to beautify, right, if that's the fashion, then it is allowed. So, the hems of our pants, back when we used to have hems. I don't know, David, what's the latest fashion? Hems on the bottom pants or no hems? I think no hems now.
It depends who you ask.
Okay, I asked you. Right, so...
I'm still wearing them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Bigger.
So if you have a hem on the bottom of your pants, is that is that there just because you don't want the bottom to get dirty and so you fold it up, right? Or that's the fashion style, right? So for people that do it, it's the fashion style. Otherwise, you'd fold it in or cut it off. So that is okay. However, yeah, sometimes you see people if they're riding their bike or something and they fold their pant leg up so that it won't get dirty. That's not a normal way of walking around, and so that could fall into this this category. Ki derav shesha berehe derav idi mitnae besadino hava. Right. For example, this rabbi would beautify himself with garments by folding them over his shoulders, and therefore that's okay. So this would be a good question regarding the talit. You know, the original Sfaradi way to wear the talit is more like a big scarf. You have to cover your back, but you put the rest around your shoulder. That's the way they still do it in Sheretz Israel. But the Ashkenazim have come and they put the sides over their shoulders. And so, you know, if you have to walk on Shabbat in a place where there's no eruv and you have to bring your talit, which I actually have to do here, so you can you wear it like that? For sure, you can wear it in the Sfaradi style, but the other style you're putting over your shoulder. What's your main goal? Is it so that it doesn't drag on the ground? Then it could be a problem. But if it's because you think it looks nice and that's that's a normal way of wearing it, then that would be okay. All right. So one time, Rabbi Nasi was out in the field and he was wearing a talit like this with the sides over his shoulders. It doesn't mean have to be a talit, a cloak, his robe, whatever he was wearing. Amar lefanav Yoshua ben Zeruz ben Hamiv shel Rabbi Meir. So the son of his father-in-law, what we would call brother-in-law, told him, "Oh," he said, the way that you're wearing it, Rabbi Meir said, you're not chayav chatat. In other words, it's okay. He said he addressed this question. He's so precise. I don't want to wear it like that, and he let it go. Right? He doesn't even want to get into a borderline case. And I don't want to be in a case that he had to deal with and say it's okay. So he let it go. Rabin said this story, you got some of the details wrong. The brother-in-law's name was not Yoshua ben Zeruz, Eli Yoshua ben Kefusa'ehaya, Hatanosh Rabbi Akiva. He was not the brother-in-law of Rabbi, but rather the son-in-law of Rabbi Akiva. Amar Bazolo Chayev Rabbi Akiva Hatat. And he's the one that said, you can wear it like that. It's not Chayav Chatat. Amar lo diktek Rabbi Akiva adkan. So Rabbi Akiva was so precise and in this matter, Shilshel Rabbi Talito. I don't want to be anywhere near the borderline, so he unfolded his cloak. And here's yet a third version of the case, is not that he said it's permitted or it's not chayav chatat. Rather, he was asked the question. So even the fact that, say, this came up as a discussion, like maybe it's okay, maybe it's not okay, that was enough for Rabbi to say, I'd rather stay away from any safek, and he let it go down. All right, now we have the next Mishnah, the final one. So someone who goes and bathes in cave water or the water of Tiberias. Have you ever been there? Right, it's a natural hot springs, which is pretty much the only case that the rabbis allow a person to bathe in hot water in those hot springs. Then he comes out and he dries himself, even with 10 towels. He may not carry the towels. This is not a problem of carrying. It's talking about even if there is an eruv, but rather a problem that you may come to wring them out. In other words, use the towels and leave them there, because if you carry them, you say, oh, carrying these kind of heavy, I want to use them again, and you're going to wring out the towels. So use them on the spot and leave them there. You can't bring them anywhere else. אבל 10 בני אדם מסתפקים באלונתית אחת, פניהם, ידיהם ורגליהם, ומביאים אותן בידם. But what you can do is 10 people can use one towel, and they can wash their hands, face, their legs, and they can even carry it to wherever they're going. Because there are 10 people there, they will each make sure that if someone comes to wring it out, there's 9 other people that will say, no, don't wring it out. So ironically, even though this one towel that 10 people are using will be much more wet, right, and dripping, and you really want to wring it out, it's okay because they'll watch each other. Whereas the first case of one person using 10 towels, each towel will be pretty dry, and so there'll be less of a need to wring it out. But when one person is alone, then there's no one to prevent him from wringing it out. Part B of the Mishnah. Sachin umeshameshin avalo mitalemin velo mitgarerin. You can smear oil on your body on Shabbat, but mitamelin. In modern Hebrew, this means to exercise. It's something like to exert yourself, to cause yourself to sweat. They thought in those days that causing yourself to sweat is good for you. People think that nowadays also. They think that running outside is somehow better than running in air conditioning. Okay, so that's not allowed because of doing something that's like a medication on Shabbat. You can't sweat on purpose for health. And you can't scrape, right? The way they would clean themselves, they'd put some oil and then take a scraper, a strigil, and scrape off the dirt. You can't do that. You should not go down into a swampy river on Shabbat. We saw, well, we'll see why. And you can't make a drug to induce vomiting. You also can't align the bones of an infant. These are all types of healing. And you cannot put back a dislocated limb, also healing. If someone had a dislocated limb, you should not, this I guess was the way that they would solve it, they would go in cold water and shake it around a lot, and hopefully it would snap back in place. So you cannot do that, but you can just go for a swim in cold water and with your whole body. And that way, if it gets cured, it happens to get cured while you're having a fun swim, that's okay. It's kind of a loophole. All right, that's the different cases. So it gives two examples, any cave water and water of Tiberias. Why is it giving the specific example of water of Tiberias? Must be because that is warm. So 2 other ones are also warm water. And it says someone who washed, right, who bathed in it. So that means only if it happened already, but you can't go and purposely bathe in such water. So we learn from this that although you cannot bathe and immerse yourself, but to wash your whole body, right, it's kind of like a shower, pouring it on oneself, that is okay, according to the Mishnah. An inference from an inference. Okay. Maneh, who is the opinion that says you can take a shower or pour on your body hot water? Rabbi Shimon, Remember, it says you cannot wash your whole body, even the shower, not with hot and not with cold. Rabbi Shimon, Matir, he says it's fine, both with hot and both with cold. Rabbi Yehuda, he says hot is not allowed, but cold is allowed. Okay, so we got a chance to see all those different opinions about washing. You can dry yourself, but you cannot carry the towels if you're only one person, even 10 towels. Both parts of the Mishnah teach us something important. Something new. The first one person using 10 towels, we learn that even though there's very little water in each one, since there's only one person, he may come to wring them out. Even though it's going to be very wet, still it's okay for them to carry the towel because they will remind each other. Bringing out a towel, of course, is a problem of laundering, milaben, as part of the process. Okay, good. Tanu Rabbanan. Mistapek adam be'aluntit manicha b'chalon. If you're in the bathhouse and you use a towel, then you should put it back on the windowsill, kind of like a cubby that they had there. And do not give it to the bath attendant, because they are suspect of that terrible, unmentionable thing. What is that terrible, unmentionable thing? Bringing out the towels. Okay. In other contexts, it's eating pig or incest or something. But I guess in this context, right? What's the worst thing that can happen in a bathhouse? I don't know. I can imagine other bad things. But all right. I meant idolatry, like Aphrodite's idol. And so anyway, so don't give it directly to them because then they're definitely going to bring it out. Rabbi Shimon is matir on this whole thing against the Mishnah and says you can dry with one towel and you can carry it home. Wow. What is the halacha? Do we follow the Mishnah or do we follow Rabbi Shimon? How to be Shimon, how to be Hashmuel, how to be Yochanan. In fact, we have 4 Tanaim and Amoraim that say it's permitted to not only dry with a towel, but also carry it home against the Mishnah. So it looks like he's saying that is the halacha. Let's go through each of these 4. Where do we see that? Rabbi Shimon Hadamaran. We just quoted Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi the Tanya. Amar Rabbi Kishayunu the Medin Torah Etzel Rabbi Shimon Bitkoa. Ilmalin Shemen Ba'aluntit Mechaser Lagag Umigag Lakabef Achiel Magiin Esel Ma'ayan Jahinu Rohasin Bo. This is back when we lived in Tekoa. Rabbi is saying this, right? We used to take the oil and the towel, and we used to go through the back channels. We didn't go in the main street because there was no eruv, but they would go and jump from rooftop to rooftop, from private garden to private garden, and they made it all the way to the river in this roundabout way because they didn't leave the material there before. So now you see that they took this towel and they brought it all the way there. Well, that towel was dry, so that was okay. Well, now, how about when they were done? Doesn't say, but we can assume that they didn't leave it there at the river for someone to steal. Most likely, they brought it home the same way. So again, this whole thing is not a problem of carrying. So we don't care how they did it. The point is that they did carry their wet towel after, even though it was wet, and they didn't worry about wringing it out. Okay. Actually, it doesn't say how many people there were there, but I guess it was less than 10. And so he says, so therefore we see that Rabbi said it's okay. He says explicitly you can dry off with the towel and bring it home in your hand. He says right explicitly you can dry with the towel and you can bring it back to your home in your hand. So there you go, all 4 rabbis that disagree with the Mishnah and say that a single person can bring home the towel. Just questioning the last one, Rabbi Yochanan, did he really say that this is okay? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halacha kistam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan in general says the law follows Stam Mishnah. The Stam Mishnah here says you can't carry the towel. Rabbi Yochanan, when he taught our Mishnah, he taught it in the name of Ben Chachinai. And so he said it's only a single opinion, and therefore he disagreed with the Mishnah, right? Although Stam Mishnah Rabbi Meir, this one is not Stam Mishnah because it follows Ben Chachinai. Okay, good. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ha'ol yarin mevin balare nashim lebe banei b'lvad shitkaseh behen roshan ve'ruban. So these bath attendants, they want to bring a woman's robes, garments to the bathhouse. This is a problem of without carrying. And so what they do is they can wear it, right? The bath attendants wear these robes. As long as they cover their heads, the majority of their bodies with them, they're wearing it, so they're not carrying it, so that's okay. If it's a large scarf that's usually put over your shoulders, you got to tie the 2 bottoms down in order for it to be allowed to wear. Otherwise, it might fall off. You say tie it below, it means tie it under the shoulders. אמר להו רבה לבני מחוזקי מערבית ומנה לבני חילה, שרביבו בהו למטה מכתפיים. When you bring clothing to the soldiers, right? A lot of times a city would have to harbor, support a bunch of soldiers there, and the people there would, take care of their laundry and bring it to them. So if you're bringing the soldiers clothing that they need on Shabbat, and you can't carry it, they're outside the city, so you can wear it but let it go below your shoulders, and that way it'll be wearing it and not carrying it. Sachin umeshameshin, smear and oil and rub. The Mishnah says is okay. Tino rabanan sachin meshameshin b'nei me'ayim b'Shabbat. Specifically, the abdomen, the intestinal area, you're allowed to smear oil and rub. The problem might be that it would be like a medicinal, but people do this not only for medicine, so it's okay. Another problem is don't do it in the normal way that you do during the week, not the regular procedure. First put the oil on and then do the massage. Usually during the week, people do the opposite, massage first and then the oil, so do it the other way around. He says do it at once. Usually during the week, you do one and then the other. It doesn't matter which way. So on Shabbat, you rub in the oil, and that would make it okay. We don't exercise. We don't cause ourselves to sweat. Do not stand on the floor of this bathhouse of the Diyom Set, because it's going to warm person and heal just by that warmth, and that's called healing. This therapy only works for 21 days out of the year, and Shavuot day is one of those days. Which way is it? Does it start on Shavuot, or does it 21 days before Shavuot? When is this therapy effective? Shmuel said any medicinal drinks are most effective from Pesach until Shavuot. And so therefore, if you're saying this is 21 days and Shavuot is included, then it must be the 21 days before Shavuot. No, maybe not. Maybe with regarding those other, remember Shmuel's a big doctor. Regarding those other medications that Shmuel's talking about, it's better for it to be a little bit colder out. It's better for the medication. But this particular therapy works from it being very hot. And so better if it's after Shavuot when the weather outside is a bit hotter. So we're not sure when this would be. I'm wondering if this has to do with the days of something to do with the days of the Omer, when it was the days of sickness and people died and then stopped at some point, unlike Ba'omer, right? It's not exactly 21 days or anything, but I don't know if this has in some way related to that tradition. Amar b'chelbo chamra difrugayata umaya didyom set kipehu aseret hashibatim me Yisrael. He said the waters of this place, the wine there, the wine of this of some other place, Rugayita, and this therapy we were just talking about this fantastic water is so enjoyable that the 10 tribes of Israel found it, and they were obsessed with it, and that's all they did, and they removed them from learning Torah and from doing anything good. They just followed this material thing. And if you think the 10 tribes, well, too bad for them. Even the great sage was tempted by these waters. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach ikla lehatam imshich batarayhu i'akar talmudeh. When Rabbi Elazar went there, he went in these waters, and it was so enjoyable that he started forgetting his Torah learning. It's not just the time that it takes that you're sitting and enjoying that you're not learning Torah. I think it's also being in a world of materialism kind of removes one's focus on the spiritual and intellectual activities, and they just become weaker. Ki hadar ata When he came back from his vacation, he got the aliyah to read Sefer Torah. That Torah portion they were reading was one of the simplest. Everybody knows. Rosh Chodashim, right? Even I know it. Amar hacheresh haya libam. He's reading a Torah and he reads all the words wrong. The dalet he reads as a resh, right? And the hayat as a he. So hacheresh, the deaf person, instead of hazeh, he reads haya. They used to write the yud's pretty long, so a lot of times looked like a vav. Usually like a zayin. He reads hazeh, and instead of lachem, libam. Right? So he's reading, their hearts became deaf. It would be like a self-referential statement. Now he's lost his mind. So the rabbis felt bad for him, they prayed for him, and his learning was restored. But that is a good warning, right? Not to go to the spa too often. Lahaynu ditnan, Rabbi Nehorai Omer, Have golel makom Torah, v'automashi tavo acharecha, shechaberecha, yikayemuha, beyadecha. You should always exile yourself to a place of Torah. In other words, wherever there is a Bet Midrash and people studying Torah, you should live there. And don't say, I'll live wherever I want, and even in isolation I can learn Torah, because it's your colleagues that will help you help you establish your Torah. Don't rely on your own knowledge. This sage, his name was, who said this? It was not actually Rabbi Nehorai, it was a nickname. His name was Rabbi Nechemia. He would illuminate everyone else's knowledge. That's how great he was. He had even and even he said you always need colleagues with you. Okay, now scraping oneself with the strigil. It's true in general, you can't clean yourself into this, but if you actually have actual dirt, a mortar or excrement on your legs, and you can scrape it off. It's just cleaning, clumps of dirt. Rav Shemuel bar Yehuda Abda le'imeh migrarta dechaspa. Shemuel's mother made him strigils out of silver to use on Shabbat. So this is another way of permitting it. It's a thing that's usually done on Shabbat, but since he did it with a silver one, that was special for Shabbat, it's okay. He had a silver spoon in his mouth. This is his mother made a silver strigil. And Yordin Dima, Maitama, Mishum Pika. You can't go into the swampy river. Why not? Because it's very muddy, and then you're going to fall in, and you're going to end up having to bathe your clothes. You're going to wring out your clothes and all that, and so that's not allowed. Other people say, because then other people have to come and save you, right? So don't go into this swampy place. You can't make this concoction to cause vomiting. You can't do this with medicine, but if you can induce vomiting with your finger if you need to. Says no, even during the week you're not allowed to do that because you're wasting food. So it really depends on why. We know the Romans were all bulimics, and they would go to a big banquet and stuff themselves, and then they wanted to eat more, and so they would go and cause themselves to throw up so they can eat more. Doing it for that reason is not allowed, not on Shabbat and not during the week. It's disgusting practice. However, for medical reasons, ate something bad, not agreeing with you, then you can do it on during the week anyway, but on Shabbat with the finger, not with medicine. Then you cannot align the infant's bones. It's a kind of healing process. Says you can swaddle an infant on Shabbat if it's well. You just said that you can't do it. When you said you can't do it, that's talking about specifically the spine, because you're straining the spine, and that's a prohibited labor, but swaddling in general is okay. You can't reset a broken bone. The sage was from Baghdad. And he said, the yeshivot later on, in times of Geonim, will move to Baghdad. And, what they call Sura, Pumbedita, they were actually all in Baghdad. But at this time, the yeshivot were in those cities. But here you see that Baghdad already, and times Amoraim was a city that some sages lived in. Okay, he says halacha machazin tashevet. He says no, you can reset a break on Shabbat. Okay. Rabba bar Hana ikla lepumbedita la'al lepirke lederab Yehuda. Okay, so one time we have a fantastic story. The sage went to Pumbedita, and where Rav Yehuda was the sage. We saw Rav Yehuda and Pumbedita all at the beginning of the daf today. Right, he's the one that said over here we don't care about dust, so you can shake the cloaks in their faces. All right, so we end with him too. So he gave the Pirka. Pirka is the official lecture that he would give usually on Shabbat, and expected everybody in the town should come. And this Rabba bar Hana did not come to the Pirka. It's very upsetting to the host, to the rabbi, if people don't come. And so he tells his attendant, go and drag him to the lecture. I was just talking to a PhD student who's writing about truancy stories like this, right? Stories where people get in trouble for not coming to the class. Just go grab him. So he goes to his house, grabs him, and forces him to come to the lecture. What was he saying, Rav Yehuda, at the lecture? It says, it says you are not allowed to reset a broken bone on Shabbat. Right, so the Baba bar Hana, the guest who forcibly came, said, he says, I heard a tradition that it is allowed in the name of Shemuel. Amale, Hanan Didan, Shemuel Didan, Shemi Ali, Bedina, get up Tich. He said, oh, this is so good. You said Hana is from Bavel, Shemuel is from Bavel, I'm from Bavel also, and I never heard this tradition that says it's permitted. So you see, there's a good reason that I dragged you. Okay, this is a nice ending, because usually you drag someone to come to your lecture because you want to make sure that they hear what you say, right? And in this case, it was the person that was dragged that ended up contributing an important halacha to the lecture. So I'm sure that made him feel better. Shalom al Yisrael. Me,
Rabbi, over here. Are we just saying that Shemuel has, he's able to disagree with the Mishnah?
Right, it either could be that, or that they had a different version of the Mishnah. And the note here says different version. But yeah, I think he could disagree with the Mishnah.
Is it possible that we allow him to disagree because it's for medical purposes?
That's interesting, right? Is he disagreeing based on because he has some other baraita, some other tosefta, something, some other tradition, or just because of medical? Yeah, that's a great dissertation topic. Right? Maybe we have to collect his different statements about medicine and see specifically, is there a different methodology that he uses when he's giving medical pronouncements compared to halachic pronouncements. Okay, good. If someone's hand was dislocated, and so he wants to put it in the water and shake it around in the water, that's the way they did it. So that's not allowed. So one time Rav Yah was learning in front of Yosef, and sure enough, his hand got dislocated. He says, what do you call this shaking vigorously? How about like this? Is that okay? He says, no, asur. Okay, how about like this? Asur. As he kept demonstrating, he got better. Okay, so there's another loophole similar to the Mishnah, which says, you can just go bathing, go swimming. Okay, while you're swimming, you're treading water, you're moving around. You can't do it specifically. So here he used another loophole of asking different questions, and so shaking his hand in different ways. Amar le, mai tibaida hatanan mishit pareka yado o raglo lo yitrefem besonen avado haske darko bim nitrape. So Rav Yosef asked him, what was your question? Why did you even ask this? Why are you even asking these questions? It says in the Mishnah that you can't do it at all. But if you go and and do it indirectly because you're swimming, then it's okay. I'm not swimming, by the way. You can't swim on Shabbat. It's a different problem. But you're moving around. So because it says in Mishnah that you cannot reset a break. So this is, dislocated. Seems to me to be similar. So even though Mishnah says you cannot reset a break, and yet Shmuel says it's permitted. So I thought maybe it's the same thing here, that if I have a dislocated limb and the Mishnah says it's not allowed, maybe here also Shmuel would say it's allowed. I thought that the cases are similar. What, you're weaving them all in the same weave? You're throwing them all in the same basket? Right? Each one is a different case. Only when Shemuel, in that specific case, when he said it's allowed, that's where he said it's allowed. If he didn't say it's allowed, and he did not say anything about that case. And therefore, the question to begin with was not a good question. Hazran Allah Habit. Okay, Chazakim uberuchim. And we'll continue.